to take this all on with Daniel Levy, who's the president of the US Middle East Project, also a former advisor in the Israeli Prime Minister's office, joins us now from London. Daniel, thanks for joining us here at Al Jazeera. We've seen this enormous assault to nullify Syria's military threat. It seems that Israel perceives Jelani, or at least the uncertainty, as a greater threat than Assad was. Is that right?
Well, Nick, I don't think Israel saw Assad as a threat. I think Assad was in many respects very convenient for Israel. He presided over a collapsing, permanently at war in the last decade and a half internally Syria, and he didn't have much credibility. There was perhaps the widest gap imaginable between Assad's rhetoric of resistance and a reality of a Syria that was very convenient for Israel. Israel has, we understand, and there are reports in the Israeli media, 4 brigade-sized combat units now inside Syrian territory. That's in addition to Israel's illegal occupation and annexation of the Golan Heights for the last 50 years. And I think what we're seeing here is Israel seizing this opportunity. It's saying that it's trying to deal perhaps with a chemical or other weapons threats, but in those 300-plus airstrikes, it has acted against international law, of course, not like the cruel criminality in Gaza. But what it has done is it's debilitated any future successor Syrian authority in its ability to defend itself. I think what they're doing is saying we're acting against the threat of chaos, while at the same time demonstrating that what they're interested in is chaos, because this is the same playbook of Israel being part of a counter-revolutionary axis, including with its Abraham friends,
and does that playbook,
it did in Arab Spring 1.
Sorry to jump in, Daniel, but does that playbook include territorial? Sorry to jump in. Does it include territorial objectives? I mean, we're already seeing this incursion into the buffer zone. Are there further intentions there, do you think?
I think it's an interesting question, Nick, and I think the answer to that is, as is often the case, keep your options open when it comes to Israel. So they are there, and perhaps the Israelis will say, well, if we're going to leave, here's what we want in return. So you conduct an illegal act, and then you want to trade that off for something in the future. But there's also the distinct possibility, and some Israeli commentators are saying, that the presence doesn't look like something temporary, and you have many speculating, and Netanyahu has said that Sykes-Picot is being reopened, that the whole border situation is being reopened, and that maybe Netanyahu, who's in court right now, as we've reported elsewhere, facing those criminal charges, would rather go down as a legacy, not of a criminal who also presided over the failures of October 7th, but rather as someone who expanded Israel's borders. And I think the signal Israel thinks it's sending is that we're here, we're the regional policeman, we're the regional hegemon, we can act with impunity. The signal that may be being received by others in the region, if you look at what's happened not just in Syria, of course, but in Lebanon and especially in Gaza, is how do we contend with this out-of-control rogue state that is a danger to the entire region?
I wonder also, is it possible that there is a more passive yet helpful and instrumental role that Israel can play here to assist the new Syria, to help it stabilize and transition?
Do you do that by conducting indiscriminate, really, when it comes to at least the forces that might be needed in a future Syria? And I understand some government record offices have also been destroyed. Do you do that by seizing territory? I don't want to suggest Israel is the only external state actor with dubious intentions here, but Israel has conducted more strikes here than anyone else in a more destructive fashion since the overthrow of Assad. Of course, didn't do these things when Assad was in power. So I don't think that this is the Israeli intentionality. I do not think anyone is looking at these actions and saying, well, this is Israel trying to be helpful. I do think that the Israeli commitment here is to trying to prevent a successful model of a state that can stand itself up, be responsive to its citizens, because it knows that anywhere in the Middle East that is responsive to its citizenry is not going to look with equanimity on how Israel behaves in the region, whether that's in Palestine or elsewhere. And it has allies in that. And the other lens through which Israel sees this, which I don't think is helpful for building a model of a future Syria that one would like to see, is that Israel is very clearly saying, how do we work with the Druze? How do we work with the Kurds? Again, not the only one to think in those terms, but Israel especially, being an ethno-nationalist state itself, looks at other places and says, communal supremacy, stirring up one community against another, is how one manages things.
OK. All right, Daniel, great to have your perspective and analysis. Appreciate that. Daniel Levy speaking to us there. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Nick.